Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 18th November 2016. The first article is related to the litigation policy in India. Why do we need a new litigation policy? So, in this context, why the litigation is growing in India is the major question. You know that the government is the litigant in more than 50% of the cases that are before the judiciary. If the government is and will be a responsible litigant, obviously the cases before the judiciary are going to come down. But why the government is favoring or going for such a huge litigation? One is the bureaucracy's risk-aversive attitude. If I make a decision today, tomorrow court can declare it as null and void. Better, I will take the action once the court decides. Let the court decide is the attitude among the bureaucrats. And second thing is, the complex rules and regulations are being framed. These are often conflicting. So the decisiveness is absent among the officers. And this is also due to the fear of three C's, that is, the CVC, CBI, and CAG. So, in this context, they want politics or the judiciary to make the decisions for themselves. So, on the other hand, complex tax issues which are beyond the prerogative of the executive. So, in this case, the land is another issue where lack of proper record keeping and land management practices in India also leading to the greater litigation. In this context, the UPA government it has brought in national litigation policy in 2010. Now, how a policy shall be, if you ask this question, a policy has to be clear in its objectives. It has to be based on rational and reasonable outcomes. And every policy need to be assessed for its impact and the parity between its stated objectives and realized goals. But if you clearly observe, the litigation policy, it is too generalized and it do not fix any accountability on the failure to perform. And the institutions which are being created, they are not being given clear responsibilities. So, non-specific nature and inability to provide for clear directions, these are the major weaknesses of litigation policy which need to be corrected. Not only this, most of the policies in India are non-specific with generalist goals, and added to that there is no proper impact assessment of the policy objectives. These need to be improved. The policy evaluation and monitoring need to be improved in India. Reaching the new normal. So this is about India-Nepal relations. Let us understand a brief background of this. You all know that the Prachanda, or when the Maoists entered into the democratic stream in the first elections, Prachanda won the majority and he became the prime minister. Finally, he has tilted in favor of China. And after that, there are ups and downs between China and India relations. In the last government, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, he clearly showed a defiant stand against India. A new constitution has come into existence which did not do a proper justice to the Madhesis. What are the demands of the Madhesis? The constitutional position shall be made accessible to the naturalized citizens. The reason is, Madhesis are involved with matrimonial alliances with people from Bihar and UP. So once you get married to an outsider, the children born to this couple, they cannot occupy the constitutional positions in Nepal as per the existing constitution. And the next is provincial demarcations and proportional representation. These are the three major demands. Now, the Prachanda government, which has come into existence after the Oli in association with Nepali Congress, it was able to bring back this proportional representation to the size of the population. And these two are the pending issues even today. And among this is the provincial readjustments is the most tricky issue. Now, any amendment, if it has to be brought in for the Nepali constitution, it need to be brought in with two-third majority in the house. Now, CP, Communist Party of Nepal, United Marxist-Leninist, of KP Sharma Oli, it is not interested to bring in any amendments to the constitution. Added to that, from very early days, Nepal tried to play between China and India with regard to its benefits. So anti-Indianism started growing in Nepal from very recent past. especially the blockade which was imposed or which was claimed to be imposed by India through the by the Nepali leadership, has led to the resentment among the Nepalis. From 1950 Treaty of Peace and Friendship onwards, there are open borders between these two countries, and Nepalis can come and perform their jobs in India. Added to that, there is a Gorkha regiment which consists of the Nepalis in Indian Army, and Indian Army also trains the officers of Nepali Army. So the relations are both cultural, administrative, and political. There are much wider relations between these two countries. But however, the anti-Indianism is growing because of the rhetoric played by the politics. Sometimes some people even gone to the extreme stating that the Nepali sovereignty and Nepali nationalism means anti-Indianism. To an extent, India's intervention in the Nepali politics played a role. But you understand that the stability of our neighbor, peace of our neighbor, also reflects in the stability of our nation. So we need a stable, peaceful political system in the Nepal. That's why Nepal has many things to learn from India. In these circumstances, the President Pranab Mukherjee made a visit to Nepal, and Mr. Prachanda he has made already two visits to India. So the message of the president to build the people-people relations and to allow the Nepali students to take the IIT entrance examination, all these are to be seen as the positive steps towards building strong relationship in the future. Now, why air power was not used in 1962? 1962, India has faced a debilitating loss from the Chinese. But air power was not used at that point of time. So, what might be the reasons? The article says that India probably feared that, the Prime Minister probably feared that if India uses its air force, then China also can use its air force to destroy the Indian cities, which the political leadership did not take that particular action. Now coming to the morality of binaries. Now here, what is a binary means? Let us try to understand. A binary is making an issue to divide into two ends, as good or bad, right or wrong. So dividing the things into these two ends, we call that as a binary. So when we are dividing the issues into binaries, it means that we are failing to take a mean or median approach. In India, the political discourse is now converting itself into binaries. So we are trying to make everything as good or bad, right or wrong. We are becoming judgmental. It means that we are not involving ourselves in a discourse where the golden mean, an important median, can be found in our political arguments. And the second thing is, the personification of the public discourse is also happening. What is meant by this personification of public discourse? A discourse on any issue is getting centered around one individual. It is consciously or unconsciously the Prime Minister himself is driving the discourse in the country onto him. Now, when anti-Dalit agitation is going on, the Prime Minister himself has said, don't kill the Dalits. If you want to kill, kill me. In a democracy, why someone has to kill someone? That is what is the question posed by the author. So the Prime Minister could have raised his voice against this violence and given a stern warning to these people rather than shifting the dialogue to himself. Similarly, when demonetization has occurred, the Prime Minister he himself has spoken about his sacrifices to the nation, shifting the dialogue or else discourse onto him. And in this case, a counterbalance is always necessary for effective democratic functioning. So, in a democracy, a strong opposition creates a well functioning system. But however, in India, weakening of opposition, lack of unity among them, lack of a leader of the stature who can engage with the Prime Minister, these are all not the good signs for the democracy. And then the morality, a sense of morality, a value system has to be created. But it shall not be defined to the people by certain sets or certain sects in the country. So today, the politicization of the morality is also happening, and certain values which are being defined by certain organizations are getting imposed. And every issue, if it gets divided into a binary, then obviously it ends up in dividing the society as a whole. That is what is the concern expressed by the author. So there are three things author is talking about. We need a strong opposition in a democracy, and strong leadership among the opposition in a democracy. Second, the personification of public discourse is not good, and dividing the public discourse into binaries will ultimately lead to the separation of people. And the decision making gets shifted to the extremities rather than finding the mean. And constructive debate or criticism are not going to happen. This is what exactly happened during the Indira Gandhi. Whenever I say this, I remember Mr. Kushwant Singh book. He made a beautiful point. When a leader wins the majority of the people, and when the election is fought in his name and he wins it unopposed, then his respect towards the opposition is going to be very mild. So that's what is happening even now. So election was fought in the name of Mr. Modi rather than in the form of parties. And then people gave undisputed majority. Then it can lead to psychophancy. At that point of time, it became India is Indira, Indira is India. So now the same environment is getting recreated in India. That's what we can see it as. So that's why my point is not criticizing the leaders here. It is to bring to your notice that a strong opposition that can stand to the policy of the government, criticize the policy of the government is necessary, and without this, democracy can become shallow. After the storm, a well conceived plan, if not properly implemented, ultimately it becomes a disaster. Now, this is what is happening with regard to the demonetization drive. The supply chains got disrupted. The farmers are losing the value for their produce and they are perishing very soon. And third thing is, the trade has come to halt. The regular banking services have come to halt. So in these circumstances, what we are expected to move forward is to bring in some pacification to the farmers, making the banking services widely available to the farmers. A chance to recalibrate ties. You all know that a ceasefire agreement was signed between India and Pakistan in 2003. And also a system was put in place at the DGMO level to speak whenever the violations of the ceasefire are happening. For the past 1.5 months, we can see a regular news on the ceasefire violations. Now, the ceasefire violations do not have anything on paper. That is the reason why it was not signed as an agreement. That is the reason why both the countries at their will are violating this. And a new conference, Heart of Asia Donor Conference on Afghanistan, is going to be held in Amritsar. And the same conference has led to the resetting of button between India and Pakistan when Ms. Sushma Swaraj has visited Pakistan when this conference was held in Islamabad. And then she has relaunched the comprehensive dialogue. Now, the advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Sartaj Aziz, he is participating this Heart of Asia conference on Afghanistan in Amritsar. So probably we can see the softening of the stand on this particular issues between India and Pakistan. And remember one thing, in democracy, the military shall always be controlled by politics. In Pakistan, this very cardinal rule is being violated, and the Rahil Sharif, his term is going to get ended as a military chief. And who is going to be the new chief is going to be very much important for India. And the next is, let's get into the front page of Hindu. There are no much important articles. It is more about the demonetization drive which we are having over here. And with regard to the news page, India hopes Bhutan to ratify motor vehicle agreement. This motor vehicle agreement was proposed by Prime Minister Modi in a SAARC summit at Kathmandu. It was opposed and not ratified and signed by Pakistan. So in this context, India wanted to go forward with Bhutan, Bangladesh, India and Nepal. So now, Bhutan, it believes in gross national happiness, and it limits the tourists who visit their country to protect the environment and forests over there. Now, the major criticism of India's participation in the development in Bhutan is India's building of hydroelectric projects is leading to the environmental destruction over there. And the second thing is the present opposition believes that, even the government believes that, signing of this motor vehicle agreement will lead to the millions of vehicles entering into Bhutan, which can destroy its sensitive ecosystem. So that is what is the concern expressed by Bhutan over here. Now let's come to the business paper. India is non-committal on market economy tag for China. What is meant by this market economy status? China has a very closed economic system. Though the Deng era has started certain reforms, it is not completely an open system even today. And most of the countries suffer from the chief exports from China. And international goods price structure is getting non-competitive because of sludge from Chinese imports. So, in 2003, China entered into WTO and it was given 15 years of time to get it or to change itself to the market economy. But however, the domestic laws of every country has to recognize the market status of China. If they recognize it as a market economy, then we cannot impose the dumping duties against China. So US, European Union are not willing to give a market economy status to China, which India is also not interested. Because India is the country which has imposed the maximum anti-dumping duties against the Chinese items. And what the reasons India is citing for this? Lack of transparency, lack of free floating currency, and the subsidies, lack of proper accounting standards. All these are cited as a reason for not providing for this market economy status to China. So, and UPA government also proposed this. So, in this, Chakravarti has clearly provided one input with regard to demonetization. Every currency is same. It is not the currency that makes the black money. It is the process that brings in the black money. It means that unregulated processes, lack of proper tax structures, and providing for many exemptions under the tax structures, and lack of proper policing against the tax evasion. These are the reasons that are giving birth to black money. Unless this process is been tightened, the demonetization will not be of much use, according to Mr. Chakravarti. These are the articles for today, and thank you very much and all the best. Now, let me explain you the process how to download the notes. And after discussing or after listening to this video, I'll be giving you some 10 to 12 questions what to think over and on what you shall make your opinions. So listen to this video, download the paper, and then think for few minutes what are your opinions on this particular issue. Why India need a litigation policy? Why the litigation is so high in India? So simple questions I will be giving you. Just I want you to think over them after listening to this video. You need not do any research on the internet to get the answers to this. Your just understanding of the topics is more than sufficient. Today I will ask my office to post it properly on this thing. You need not download it, just it will be posted as a notes where you can cut, copy, paste and think over it for 15 minutes. Your thinking will make a change for this exam. So please go through that and thank you very much. Again, the notes will be posted in laex.in/civils-prep. Right, again I will write it in the next page. See, laex.in/civils-prep. You don't need the notes from me, one thing I am sure, because Insights is providing you the notes. And then Civils Daily they are giving the notes, Forum IAS they are giving the notes. So those many people are giving the notes. I don't want to repeat and duplicate the same work. What I will do is, after this explanation, I will be giving you certain questions to think and make your opinions. These questions will be broadly answered from the NCERT perspective. You need not write any question or answer. Just it's a straight question, just within 10 or 15 words. Make your mind to think onto it and generate the answer. I mean, what my simple thing is, rise your mental abilities to think on something. Right? Thank you very much and all the best.